Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome to part 3 of the Arena Decathlon. The Decathlon is a series of events where the goal is to get a token from as many different events as possible, and we're now on Decathlon event number 3, Dominaria Mixer Sealed. This is going to be a Phantom Sealed deck event, but instead of building a deck from 6 packs of the same set like usual, we'll be building a deck out of 2 packs of Dominaria, 2 packs of Dominaria United, and 2 packs of the Brothers War mixed together. And again, Phantom Sealed means we don't keep anything we open in the packs, we're just using them for the duration of the event. So with that information all out of the way, let's crack open these packs and see where the cards take us today. Alright, so as you can see here, because we do have 2 packs of the Brothers War, there is a chance that we get more than 6 rares because every pack of Brothers War has a retro framed artifact that could be a rare or mythic. So we have 7 rares in our sealed pool, one of which is the retro framed artifact Mind's Eye. Pretty solid card for slower formats, and sealed does tend to be relatively slow, so that can probably make it into our deck. We also have Helm of the Host being probably our best rare out of all of them. Another very slow card, but this will win the game pretty quickly, giving you additional copies of the best creature on your board every single turn. Hajar Loyal Bodyguard is probably our 3rd best rare, just kind of a 2-mana 3/3. And then we've got some really bad rares, unfortunately, after that. We have Joda the Unifier, which is a 5-color card, so it's going to be almost impossible to play it in sealed, but if we get some really good mana fixing, we can get there. We have Threats Undetected, which is too risky generally for me, for not much upside. You're going to be able to, if you draw this early in the game, draw 2 guaranteed creatures off of it, but it'll be the weakest of the 4 creatures that you choose, and the problem with this card is if you draw it later in the game, you're going to draw basically nothing off of it, because if you only have 3 different types, 3 different powers of creatures in your deck when you cast this card, you can only reveal 3 of them, but your opponent can still choose 2 of them to shuffle back in, so you end up spending 3 mana just to get the worst of 3 creatures that you've chosen. And if you're down to only 2 different powers of creatures, if you're really late in the game and you only have, 10 to 15 cards left in the deck, sometimes that can happen. This card's a completely dead draw, so really not a fan of Threats Undetected either. And then I completely didn't notice Sylvan Awakening. It's actually definitely better than Joda and Threats Undetected. It's going to be a potential win condition if you play this really late in the game, turning all of your lands into 2/2 reach indestructible creatures until the start of your next turn. So you can use this to attack your opponent with a bunch of your lands and try to get a kill on them, or you can just use this as a defensive spell. I still don't think it's great. But it's definitely better than Joda and Threats Undetected generally. So we do get to take a look at our final rare here. Now that we're going into the full sealed pool, let's see what we didn't get to see there. And that's our best rare. Not by far, it's actually pretty similar in power level to Helm of the Host, but this card is ridiculous. A 6-mana, 4/5 flyer. Deals 4 damage to any target when it enters the battlefield. And it has the ability to dump a bunch of red mana into it to give it additional power, end the game in the sky really quickly. So Tyrant of Kerr Ridges is an excellent rare. It's pretty much definitely going to force us into red here because we just don't have much else in terms of powerful rares. Honestly, our next best 2 rares are just colorless anyway, so we're almost definitely playing red, but we do want to take a look at all of our commons and uncommons as well and make sure that we're going with whatever our most consistent colors are. So I do like to take a look at my colorless and multicolored stuff right off the bat because these are the cards that can fit into any deck or the cards that could really push us into a certain direction. Multicolored uncommons tend to be pretty powerful cards to try to build around that could send you in a certain direction, so they could be some nice guidelines as what you could build in your sealed pool. So that's why I like to look at the multicolored, and the colorless is just because they're going to go into pretty much anything. So it looks like nothing super strong in colorless, unless I am very heavy towards monocolored, then Steel Exemplar can be pretty good. But outside of that, it's mainly our rares that are going to be the powerful cards here. Most everything else here is pretty average filler, just If we have a deck that happens to work well with these specific cards, then sure, but none of them are exciting cards that are going to fit into everything that we play. How's our mana fixing looking? We do have an Evolving Wilds, we have a Tangled Islet, Geothermal Bog, Contaminated Aquifer, and Idyllic Beachfront. Actually quite a few dual lands for only having 2 packs of Dominaria United. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 dual lands, an Evolving Wilds, a Relic of Legends. I suppose that's it. So we could maybe play Joda's Codex with a bunch of those dual lands to get that domain going. Don't know if we have quite enough mana fixing to want to try to do a Joda deck, especially because Joda's only really good if you play a bunch of other legends. But I suppose we could try to do that sort of build. I feel like it's probably not going to be the right thing to do. Definitely some interesting things to see looking at our colorless and multicolor, but let's take a peek at each individual color now. And I like to put them into the deck view so I can see the mana curve and creatures versus non-creatures more easily. So looking at white here, looks like we do have a lot of stuff in white. Pretty flexible stuff as well. We have some good evasive threats. Flyers like Aven Sentry, Mesa Cavalier, and Cleaving Skyrider. We have some very good white-black kicker cards. Specifically Phyrexian Missionary is very, very, very good if you kick it. Sleeper is also pretty solid when kicked. Some nice endgame cards, an Onulet with that good Unearth ability, Cavalry is just another good flyer, and some decent removal, Citizen's Arrest, Gideon's Reproach, and Deadly Riposte. So white looks pretty standard here, but pretty solid. Nothing tremendously exciting unless we're specifically in white-black, but a very consistent color that does have support. It's got just solid filler creatures, it's got good flyers, and it's got decent removal. Moving on to blue, this looks like a color with much less support in our sealed pool. We're just pretty low on blue cards in general. A few of those are pretty filler, like Archaeologist, Hulking Metamorph, Air Marshal. Honestly, all of our creatures are pretty filler. None of them are incredibly exciting. Our interaction is pretty decent. I'm a very big fan of Blink of an Eye. Essence Scatter is quite solid as well. Machine Over Matter is decent. And then Deep Freeze isn't great, but it's about as good as blue removal is going to get. So just not a lot of blue cards, and none of the creatures are all that great, so I'm not that interested in trying to play blue. Moving on to black here. Black is again a little bit lower in terms of the amount of cards in the color, and we have some cards I would consider almost completely unplayable. Definitely not a fan of Divest. It's relatively easy to miss on this card at times. You just draw it anytime moderately later in the game, and sometimes it'll miss. Drudge Sentinel always feels like it's just too much mana to be dumping into that indestructible ability. Whisper definitely needs some support to work well, but can be powerful. I think that's it for stuff that just straight up gets cut out of the deck. Just these two are never going to make the cut. But we've also got some cards that aren't just like good at a blanket level like Whisper that require some support that black doesn't really have. We have no other token production or anything to go with Whisper, and a pretty low creature count in general. Skullflare, another card, we need a really high creature count in the deck to get our graveyard full enough for this quickly. And then Tattered Apparition's pretty filler. Windgrace Acolyte's relatively filler. Swarm as well. It's mostly filler in black. I mean, it's some decent filler, and then the one good removal spell, one good graveyard recursion spell. Honestly, these are my two favorite cards in black that we have. So, again, just doesn't feel like too much going on in black. So hopefully our red is really good, because our rare certainly is, but let's see what support we have for it. Well, luckily we definitely have a lot of red cards. The problem here is that we have almost exclusively red creatures. We don't have any removal outside of the Tyrant itself that can do 4 damage to a creature if we want. We just have a Frenzied Rage as an aura and a Run Amok as a combat trick. Run Amok is a very good combat trick if you are on the aggressive. So I think red-white, out of all the colors I've seen so far, looks like the most exciting build of this deck. because we can really lean into the aggressive power of just having a bunch of red creatures, and then we actually get some removal in our secondary color, which is the biggest issue with red. We have plenty of creatures to choose from, basically nothing in terms of non-creature spells, especially no removal. So white is our only color that actually has 3 removal spells. We have 1 removal spell in black, 1 removal spell in blue, and both of those colors don't have a ton of cards in the first place. So red-white seems like probably the best place to be currently, because again, we get the strongest card in our whole sealed pool, and we actually get access to some removal spells. Now there are a variety of creatures here. Some of these are a lot more filler than others, but there's certainly enough of them to have some decent creatures in the deck alongside a secondary color. So red is definitely up there. Taking a look at green, we have some very filler creatures that I'm not a fan of, like Llanowar Stalker, Llanowar Scouts, Hexbane Tortoise. Opportunist is the only creature I like. The rest of them, they can make the cut if you just need more creatures in your deck, but they're nothing all that exciting. We also have pretty similar stuff when it comes to the non-creature spells. Wasteful Harvest here is just really bad unless you have a ton of cards that synergize with Self-Mill with filling your graveyard, because outside of that, it's going to be 3 mana to draw 1 card, which is a little overcosted. Threats Undetected, I already spoke on why I don't really like that card, and I'm probably not going to run it here. Fog of War is another card. It's just too expensive and kind of narrow. Not a massive fan of Sylvan Awakening, and then we just have some random combat tricks here, so green is generally pretty unexciting of a color as well. So our only 2 options here really feel like try to go for a red-white aggressive strategy, leaning into Tyrant of Kerr Ridges as the big bomb to try to roll with, or because most of our colors are pretty bad, I only have 1 or 2 cards that are exciting at all, we could try to go for the Joda deck. I don't think our mana fixing is quite there, but I will take a look at what that deck would look like and see if it looks decent at all, if our red-white deck doesn't look great. So I'm going to start off with the red-white deck, because I believe that that is the deck we'll probably be running today. So let's get that all together real quick. Alright, so I put every single red and white card into this deck along with Mind's Eye and Helm of the Host, and we'll start cutting cards from here till we get down to a 40 card deck. I would like to be aggressive to make really good use of Run Amok and just our high creature count in general. So if I'm going to go pretty aggressive and try to stay with a low curve, and then finish the game off with some evasive creatures once our opponent gets some good blocks down, I probably want to lower the amount of big, expensive, slow, dirtily kind of spells, like Mind's Eye is a little too slow. I think if I want to go for a dedicated aggro deck, I'm probably not going to go for that. Mass Production as well. This could be a way to find your last few bits of damage by going wide late in the game, by getting around 1 or 2 blockers by just having more creatures than your opponent, but it is a lot of mana. Blitz Automaton I'll definitely keep in though, since it's flexible. Play it as a 3-drop or a 7-drop. 100% keeping the Tyrant in. Molten Monstrosity can get cast for cheaper if you've got a beefy creature down. Even if you only have a 3-power creature down, this is a 5-mana 5/5 trample, which is still pretty good. We've got a lot of at least 3-power creatures, so we can keep that in there. 4-mana stuff, we're not going to have a ton of historic cards for Sanctum Spirit, so it's usually going to be a 4-mana 3/2 lifelink, which is not a very good deal if we don't have historic cards to give this indestructible, because then our 4-mana creature is just going to die to our opponent's 2-mana 2/2. So that'll put us pretty far behind if we make trades like that. I do like Warbrute. I like the Enlist ability on it a lot. Enlist plus Trample is just a nice couple abilities to have together to help you push through small little trump blockers from your opponent. The Chain Dancer is not the greatest. It's basically like a 4-mana 4/4 unless you have ways to buff its power. So it's like good with a combat trick. If I have a ton of mana left over, I can attack, run amok, and double strike it, which is cute. But I only really have 2 combat tricks in here, and I'm probably going to be cutting like this equipment and this aura most likely. So probably not going to have Chain Dancer synergies, but it could work if we do leave the combat tricks and the equipments in there. Mishra's not great. It's just a very small body for the mana cost, only 1 toughness. It's another one of these kind of things that I don't like, which is relatively high mana value creature trading for something that could cost a lot less. So the fact that this dies to like a 1/1 token, like your opponent gets a 1/1 soldier token or a 1/1 sapperling token or anything like that, and then this is a completely irrelevant creature at attacking and pretty bad at blocking as well. So you need to be getting a ton of use out of the activated ability, and it's a good activated ability. I'm not sure it justifies the 1 toughness though, so not a huge fan of Mishra. Keldon Overseer is okay. It has that same 1 toughness problem, but this does get around it a little bit by being a tiny bit more relevant late game, because it can be a way to finish your opponent off for 7 mana, stealing their best creature, adding 3 power with haste on the board. That can really ruin math for your opponent, where they're sure that they've stabilized. They have like 3 blockers up to your 3 attackers. If you top deck this thing with 7 mana, it's like, okay, now instead of having 3 attackers, you're going to have 5, because you also have the Overseer attacking and the creature you stole from your opponent. And your opponent, instead of having 3 blockers, is going to have 2. So this can actually add a ton of extra damage if you get it kicked in the late game, while still being solid in the early game. If you're really aggressive, sometimes just 3 mana, play a 3 power haste creature and bash your opponent. So I actually like Overseer better than Mishra. We of course have the flyers that I'm a big fan of, Cavalier and Skyrider. Again, not going to have a lot of historic spells here, so Trapper's probably not the greatest. It's going to be a 3 mana 3/2, which is okay. Still has the issue of trading down into 2 mana 2/2s, but that's less of an issue on a 3 mana card than it is on a 4 mana card, like our Spirit. But, I don't know, I have a few historic cards. I have Automaton, Helm, Mishra's Juggernaut, and Onulet that I'll probably be playing. But out of all the 3 drops, I think it's the one I'd be most likely to cut here. Non-creature cards, we have the Power Blade. Not a huge fan of equipment, especially 3 mana equipment. It's just a lot of mana to cast this and get it going. Join Forces is a pretty big combat trick if you're getting into a large combat where multiple creatures are blocking. That's interesting. I'll keep it in for now. If we need more room, though, it might be one of the first cuts. We've got Banalish Sleeper, 2 mana for a 3 power creature. Again, bad against sapperlings and soldiers, but it is quite good if your opponent doesn't get a creature down early. It can punish some of the more slow strategies as in a good aggressive body. So I'm going to keep it in for the same reason I'm going to keep Rock Hunter in. Those are both basically the same card, pretty self-explanatory there. Definitely keeping Phyrexian Missionary in. Even if you have 0 black sources in your deck, a 2 mana 2/3 lifelink is just pretty far above the curve. Lifelink makes it really hard for your opponent to outrace you. It has 3 toughness. So if your opponent has 2 mana 2/2s and you have a 2 mana 2/3, you're winning combat for some time. So big fan of Missionary, and we actually do have a red-black dual land that we saw earlier and an Evolving Wilds. So we could just play 1 swamp, a red-black dual land, and an Evolving Wilds and have 3 black sources, so that if we top deck this Missionary later in the game, we could kick it, and the same for the Sleeper, without even really messing with our mana base all that much, just putting a single swamp in the deck. So that could be pretty good. We've got a Bloodstone Goblin. I only have like 3 cards with Kicker, so this is mostly just a 2 mana 2/2, but a 2 mana 2/2 can be fine if you need more aggressive creatures. Probably cutting that over Dwarven Forge Chanter. I think I like the Forge Chanter a little better. It's like less power at face level, but the prowess is quite nice on this card. Suppose I won't have all that many non-creature spells. I don't know. We could run like 5 2-mana creatures. But Bloodstone Goblin and Dwarven Forge Chanter are the weakest of our 2-mana creatures. Got a Vioshino Branch Rider. Not a big fan of this unless you can kick it in green. Yeah, it's got that very good kind of fire-breathing ability where you can dump a bunch of mana into it to get a bunch of extra damage going to your opponent. But it has 1 toughness, so it trades into literally any creature that your opponent plays at any point in the game. So it's not really often going to get in for that huge ton of mana dumped in extra damage. Lava Runner's okay because it beats 1/1s, but I don't know if we have enough instants and sorceries for this card. We're going to have 4 instants / sorceries maximum. Yeah, it's basically never going to get +1/+0, so it's just a 1 mana 1/2. Not that exciting. Drawbridge is okay as well. Not the greatest in an aggressive deck, obviously, because we're going to play it and it's not going to do anything till quite late in the game, because we need to spend pretty much every turn early on putting more creatures on the board to put more pressure on our opponent's life total. But then when we do get later in the game, being able to tap down their best blocker every turn is decent. And of course, this is also good at just tapping down your opponent's best attacker when you're on the defensive, but I think this is better in defensive decks than aggro decks because then you're actually getting value from blocking with your 0/3, so that's another potential cut. But I think everything I've set to the side is a definite cut, so let's see how many cards we're at cutting all of these. At 42 cards, so I do need to cut a couple more. I forgot to look at the 2-mana non-creature cards. We could cut Frenzied Rage, although it is a little interesting to me in here because we do have so many 2-mana, 3-mana creatures now. This is... Auras are generally very risky cards, because if you play something like a Rock Hunter on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you try to cast a Frenzied Rage on that Rock Hunter, if it resolves, that's a 5-power creature with Menace. So it's a 5-power creature that your opponent's going to have a hard time blocking, so it's going to kill them in 4 hits. So the upside of that kind of play is very high. Problem is the downside's super high as well. If you do that and then your opponent just plays a Disfigure and kills your Rock Hunter and your Frenzied Rage, you're just down 2 cards. You've spent 2 of your 3 mana on turn 3 to do that, and now you're not even playing another creature that turn. You're probably going to lose the game if they have the cheap removal on the spot for that, and you're still going to have a pretty bad time if they have like sorcery or speed removal when they untap. So auras are always risky. They're always risky. They're high reward but high risk. So don't know if I love it in here, but I kind of want to be that kind of risky player today. I think I'm going to drop the drawbridge here. What is the creature count? I like about 17 creatures in a really aggressive deck like this, and we have 18, so we can cut the drawbridge. We've still got a good amount of creatures, plus drawbridge has defender, so it doesn't really work towards like my aggressive creature count. So I guess we'll just cut one of these non-creature cards. Riposte is certainly an option because we're trying to be on the aggressive, so if we're in a position where we're needing to kill tapped creatures, we're probably already having a bad time. Yeah, I might cut Riposte over being able to run more combat tricks in the Frenzied Rage kind of play. And then this is just our super aggressive red-white deck. I am going to go ahead and put in the 1 swamp into the deck for the Sleeper and the Missionary. But again, those cards are good at face value in this deck, but they could be great if we manage to hit our black source for them. So Geothermal Bog, Evolving Wilds, and Swamp will be added to the deck. Let's look at our white versus red cards. We have 10 white cards, 9 red cards. We do have Citizen's Arrest that needs 2 white sources and Tyrant that needs 2 red sources. I want to go really even on white and red sources, it sounds like, but maybe 1 more white source than red sources if I have an odd number, which it looks like I do. So I'll have to go 1 more plains than mountain, because currently we're at 8 red sources and 8 white sources, but I haven't put my swamp in the deck to grab off Evolving Wild, so I need to cut 1 of the 2. So we'll go 8 white sources and 7 red sources, and hopefully a solid enough mana base to call that a deck. So that is the red-white aggro deck that I have built for today. That is likely what I'm going to play, but I am going to take a peek real quick at the 5-color Joda build just to see. That could be a fun build. Maybe it looks pretty strong, but I think this red-white aggro deck looks really nice, and it can really punish a lot of the slower decks, which I think could be a kind of a pillar of this format, because Dominaria and Dominaria United were both relatively slow sealed formats. Brothers War was the only one that was generally pretty aggressive, so I feel like we might be playing against a lot of like 3-color, maybe even 4-color splashy slower decks, where this deck can punish them pretty well. So incredibly likely again that I'll just be running this deck, but I am going to go ahead and build the 5-color deck so we can show that off and see if it looks fun enough to try that instead. Alright, so I mean, here's a look at the 5-color build. I think this deck is pretty much definitely worse. The mana base is really bad. We don't have great payoffs for Joda. Like, theoretically, we have all these cards that care about legends, like Hajar cares about legendary creatures, being able to sack itself to give them indestructible. Arvad can buff the legendaries, but all of our legendaries kind of suck. They're just like small and dirtily. We just have Elas, Hajar, Mishra, Arvad, and Joda. So the idea with Joda, the big powerful play that you can do is if you cast a legendary, you get to cascade into another one. Problem is we have 4 other legends. By the time we cast Joda, we've probably already cast 1 or 2 of them. And if we cast any of our 2 mana legends, we don't cascade into anything. And then if Joda dies and they don't get +X anymore, Joda doesn't even really work as a win condition because all of our legends are just 3 power maximum without Joda on the board. So Joda just doesn't feel like a good enough payoff here with the legends that we have in our sealed pool to be that impressive. And our mana fixing isn't good enough to try to play Joda unless Joda was going to be incredibly impressive here. Because as you can see, the mana base is a little all over the place here. We basically have to do something where we have 1 or 2 colors as the core of the deck so that we can consistently cast at least some stuff. So here, blue-white is the core. We have 3, 4, 5 blue sources plus Evolving Wilds, so 6. And we have 7 white sources. That way we can play all of our cheap white and blue interaction to be somewhat of a controlling deck, help us survive till later in the game. We have all this cheap white removal with Deadly Riposte, Gideon's Reproach, and Citizen's Arrest, and all the cheap blue interaction of Blink of an Eye, Essence Scatter, and Deep Freeze. Blue also gives us the Pixie Illusionist that can help mana fix us. We do have Relic of Legends and Meteorite, at least, for other mana fixing cards, but those don't really work till late in the game, so casting a Hajar early is pretty much never going to happen because we've only got 1 green source in the deck. Casting Elas early is not going to happen super often, so the curve ends up being really high up, and by the time we cast those cards, they're just not that impressive. Yeah, just a lot of stuff I'm not a huge fan of with the 5-color deck. I do like our grindy card draw cards like Mind's Eye and Meteorite for a slower deck, or Mind's Eye and Joda's Codex for a slower deck like this to just really get ahead in card advantage if we stabilize, but I think the mana base is a little too all over the place, so we're going to stick to that red-white deck. Give us a deck overview there, and then we'll get into the gameplay. Alright, here's a look at the final deck we're going to be playing for the Dominaria Mixer Sealed Arena Decathlon event. This is going to be a Boros aggro deck, a red-white aggro deck here. Good amount of great aggressive 2-mana bodies. We've got 5 creatures at 2 mana. A couple of them are kind of filler, the Forged Chanter and the Bloodstone, but the rest are very good at being aggressive. We've got a bunch of 3-mana bodies and a lot of flyers in this deck to help get through for the final few bits of damage, even if our opponent clutters up the board. We have the Cleaving Skyrider, the Mesa Cavalier, a couple Aven Sentries, and an Aeronaut Cavalry. We actually have a pretty decent soldier count in here, weirdly enough. We've got 5 of them. So 4 other soldiers for the cavalry, so sometimes we even do get the +1/+1 counter off this card, alongside it being a flyer to try to end the game. A lot of longevity for an aggressive deck like this. We have plenty of big stuff to play late game. The big Onulet and Juggernaut as large unearthing threats, and our biggest bomb, Tyrant of Kerr Ridges, that should win almost every game that we manage to cast it, because it's going to put an absolutely must-be-killed threat on the board while blowing up our opponent's best card, or shooting them in the face for 4 damage, so that's going to be sweet. A lot of decently beefy creatures at the top end here can also make it so Molten Monstrosity can come out for only 4 or 5 mana instead of a ton, so another good game-ending threat there. And we've got a great suite of non-creature spells to help our smaller creatures get in for damage. We have great combat tricks like Run Amok and Join Forces to make sure that we can win combat when our opponent is attempting some blocks. That way we can keep our creatures on the board, clear out some blockers, and then attack in for more damage the following turn. Run Amok's especially good in this deck because we get to kill their blocking creature and still deal some damage to them through their block, which is quite nice. We have a Frenzied Rage for getting just really all in early. This is the most questionable inclusion in the deck, I think, because these kind of cards are really risky, but in the right matchup, if our opponent's low on removal and we just slap this on something real quick, this could end a game super quickly. Also got Gideon's Reproach and Citizen's Arrest for just straight up removal if we need it, and Helm of the Host as our second bomb. Not quite as good as the Tyrant, in my opinion, in this deck specifically, because this deck is pretty aggressive and this takes quite a while to set up. It takes 9 mana total 4 mana the turn you play it, another 5 the turn after that. So it's going to be a little slow, but if your opponent doesn't have like artifact removal to get rid of the helm, and you're not under too much pressure to where you have the time to set it up, it's going to pretty much inevitably win you the game, even if it's just giving you additional copies of a 2/1 flyer or a 3/1 on the ground. Basically, if you're getting a creature every single turn off this, it's going to win the game. So pretty sweet stuff from our sealed pool today. We'll see how it plays out for us as we head into the gameplay. Here we are now in game 1. This hand is a little bit slow. We're not doing anything till turn 3, but we do only have 5 2-mana cards in the deck, so we can't guarantee we're always going to be playing a card on turn 2. We have no 1-mana cards either, so because we have good mana here, we have enough, we have both our colors of mana, and we have enough to get started with the Cavalier. I am going to keep the hand because we just need to draw a single land by turn 4 to be able to play anything in the whole hand by the end of this game. So I think it's a very, very safe keep, especially since we are on the draw here. That gives us 4 total draw steps to hit 1 land to start casting everything. Aggressive Sabotage is pretty annoying here, but Frenzied Rage is a really easy discard because it just does not do a lot right now. Probably have to go for Join Forces as well, because this isn't going to impact the game until we've already played all these creatures. It's going to be quite some time from now. I think we just need to get rid of the non-creature stuff. So our opponent did play a turn 1 Ashnod. That is a... Oh, this is awkward. I have to make a choice here. I'll go over Ashnod in a second. If I play this Plains, I get to play Cavalier this turn, but the only way I know I get to play a 4-mana card turn 4 is if I crack the Wilds immediately. I think I'm just going to play Cavalier, because we have the backup plan of just playing a Skyrider during their turn if I don't draw an untapped land, and if I do, being able to curve out Cavalier into a 4-drop is really, really good, and it's going to be a lot better than if we just play nothing this turn and then a 4-drop next turn. Disfigure for the Cavalier from our opponent. It's a very, very nice sealed pool from them. A bunch of cheap black creatures, cheap black removal. Good stuff. So anyways, Ashnod is a pretty big threat once they get to 5 mana. They can start exiling creatures from their grave to get zombies. For now, it doesn't do much. It's just a 1/1 Death Touch, but once they have 5 mana, if they've got some other stuff in grave, Ashnod is going to pop off. So... probably going to Reproach Ashnod. I mean, I only have 2 straight removal spells in the deck. Not the biggest fan of that. I am only taking 2 damage a turn. Ooh, I would love to see my opponent attack with this Battlefly Swarm here, because then I can kill it with Skyrider without even having to kick. Skyrider does have this good kicker effect. Aw, they've got a Swamp. Now I can't make that block because the Battlefly Swarm can give itself Death Touch. But yeah, Skyrider has this kicker. If I hold off on it till later in the game, I can play it and kick it to kill a 1 toughness creature on their board if they attack with at least 1 creature. But I need to get to 6 mana for that, so I don't know if I can wait. If the plan's to wait for that, I have to kind of like just sit here taking damage for a while or Reproach the Ashnod. I'm only 2 mana away from kicking the Skyrider technically, I guess. Yeah, I'm just going to hold out. I can take 2 damage a turn. It always feels bad when I'm sitting here doing nothing, but we're not under enough pressure to have to, so we should probably try to get as much value off of all of our cards as possible. Just play my 3/4 next turn. Might even get them to not attack with Ashnod so they can hold up a Death Touch blocker. Mill any creatures? They did mill a Rager, but they're probably going to unearth that instead of making a 3/3. I guess they could make a 3/3. Ooh, they're going to Urborg Repossession that. That's pretty good. Gain a couple life, and now they get to cast this to draw a card and unearth it to draw another card later, so they're definitely going to get some good value. Alright, we missed on a land here, so we're still 2 lands away from Skyrider. I actually kind of want to play Bloodstone Goblin and hold up Reproach, because Goblin is a card I'm more than happy to trade into Ashnod, whereas Warbrute I am not. So if I play Warbrute, I'm just going to still not block. And all they have to do to make it so Warbrute doesn't get in is pulled either of their 2 creatures back because they're both Death Touch. Alright, let's get Ashnod out of here. Been a weird game. We are definitely not playing the aggro. Scrapwork Rager has hit the board now. Opponent draws a card. And they cast an Opt as well. A lot of good value in their deck. Tons of card draw. Run amok. Pretty awkward here. I'm just going to put the 3/4 body down so that their Scrapwork Rager doesn't get to hit us. We're just taking 1 damage a turn right now from the Battlefly Swarm. So I've still got time. Opponent has 7 mana now. Got any big late game threats? They definitely got the mana, but it looks like they just have more removal. Alright, Geyser, that's not good for us, but at least it isn't just straight up removal. We're down to 13 now. That is also not a land. Definitely a win condition. I could have a counter spell here. I can't really play around a counter. All I have are 3 or 4 mana creatures. They don't have a counter spell, at least. Here's command. That's pretty nasty. Draw another card and get a 2/2. This is a creature with power toughness equal to the number of artifacts they control. We've got more removal. This deck feels a lot better than ours. This is a really sweet sealed pool. We're still not dead. If we start hitting lands, get to that 6 mana, try to take things over. Missionary is actually really good here. It's probably our best non-land draw. That's the worst auto tap I've ever seen. Wants to tap our kicker mana. Alright, so this holds off all their 2/2s because it can block 1 and gain us 2 life. We're under enough life total pressure, I kind of have to pick up my flyer that gains life when it hits the board instead of picking up my 3/4 or something. Because it's possible, if I hit any land in the deck, then I can cast the flyer and a Gideon's Reproach in the same turn next turn. It'd be a good way to try to get back in this. Could also pick up the Bloodstone Goblin to guarantee that I can play Goblin and Reproach next turn. But if I pick up the flyer and I don't get a land, do I have a good alternate play? Just play Even Sentry? I mean, I'm just going to go for it. We have to draw lands eventually. I was like, we're probably not getting anywhere if I don't draw lands anyway. If I play the Goblin and Reproach next turn, I'm pretty quick. Alright. No removal for Missionary. Let's go. I mean, just playing the Cavalier in the first place is good. We don't actually have to Cavalier plus Reproach, now that I think of it. I think Cavalier was probably the right pick. Because even if we miss, just play Cavalier. And we hit, and now we're playing with fire here. Now we're legitimately trying to come back in this game. We have the ground locked down until they can get rid of Phyrexian Missionary. We're gaining life back up to 9. We can now trade into the Battlefly Swarm, so they have nothing to attack with until they kill one of our creatures, and we have the Gideon's Reproach still. which I don't think I want to just do here. I think I can go down to 8. Because again, one more land is where Skyrider kills the swarm. Awesome, which means I get to play another creature and kill their flyer at the same time, which is really getting me places. And then after that, I can Helm of the Host up this Cavalier. So every time I get a duplicate of it, I gain more life and really get back in the game. I'm at a low enough life total right now, though, where I don't really want to attack with this Cavalier. I want to play it safe there. But yes, the Cleaving Skyrider deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of attacking creatures. They will be attacking with 1. And will be doing 1 damage to it. Still a lot of things that could kill us here. Just a single removal spell would be pretty bad. Because they can, again, they could kill the Missionary, and then I can still do my Cleaving Skyrider play to shoot the Battlefly Swarm. But then they get to attack with 3 2/2s. I have to trade off into 2 of them. I take a couple damage. It's still definitely bad if they have removal here. But I think it's late enough now that still able to probably turn things into a lead for me, even if they remove my Missionary from the board. Because I can put them down to 1 creature off of the 2 creatures blocking and then still have 3 cards in hand to play with. Alright, let's see if they have a counterspell here. They are a blue-black controlling sort of deck, so let's find out. If they have not hit a counterspell, this is going to be beautiful. If they have, this is going to be super sad, because we're missing out on a 2-for-1. Missing out on putting another body on the board and getting rid of their swarm. Alright, that is not a counterspell. So we're going to target the swarm, and it's going to resolve. We're going to kill that. They get to scry 1 with the Vivisector. But now we're getting to a point where I get to start attacking them slowly but surely. I can even just play a Helm of the Host and hold up Gideon's Reproach. And if they don't deal with the host, next turn we slap it on a Cavalier and go to town. Could go for a Missionary Run-Amok attack to gain some life here. I think I'm on Helm. Honestly, if Helm starts popping off, we're so guaranteed to win the game. I don't think I even need to chip in for 2 damage right now. I just need to really make sure I untap with Helm of the Host on board. So we'll hold all of our blocks up and our removal spell. That's everything we can possibly do to make sure we survive this turn. And if we do survive this turn, we pretty much just win. This is going to be really nice for us, because with Gideon's Reproach, I can kill the Rager, which is going to make this a 1-1 instead of a 2-2, so I kill it without losing the Skyrider, and I'm going to take 0 damage here. So that's going to work super well. Opponent does get to scry 3 off this Vivisector, because we're killing their whole board. The only issue here is I'm losing Cavalier. It might have been better to just not block with Cavalier. But Helm of the Host on anything is still going to win us the game. We're just not going to gain life anymore. Probably should have done the same thing, but went down to 6 life. That would have been the safer play. Yeah, that was overall a pretty good block, but the Cavalier part was not correct. My mistake there. Is this... I don't know if the auto tapper's holding up a red. Token does get haste, but they can unearth a Rager to hit me for 2. Do I go down to 6 if they do that, or do I want to hold up a blocker? They're blue-black, they're not going to have any other haste, but they could have a flash creature. I'll play it safe here and hold this 2-2 back. Alright, Stern Lesson, they're going to draw 2, discard a card. Yeah, trading with Cavalier there might cost me the game if they have some kind of extra way to get some damage in, because they already have the Unearth to threaten 2 more damage. Found some really good lines to start stabilizing, but the Cavalier block was definitely bad. Are gonna unearth the Rager. They get to draw a card. Threatening 2 damage. It's gonna die at the end of the turn anyway, so I'm just gonna take it here if they're not adding any other power on the board by having some other creature having been flashed out or something. Alright, Rager's gone. Now I can play a monstrosity because I have nothing else to do with my mana anyway. I'm going to make sure this resolves before I choose how I attack. If it gets countered, then I'll probably hold 1 creature back again, in case they have something with flash. But it does resolve and they're down to 10. I do have a red source now for potential active treason effect to steal one of our creatures and attack us with it. I don't think I'm supposed to play around that. Like, they have no natural mountains, and the odds of them splashing in an active treason are astronomically low. Not generally the kind of card people splash in. It's probably in there for kicker effects, like how this Yavimaya Coast is likely in there for their Urborg repossession. They do have an Extinguish the Light for our 5/5. So this Depth Charge Colossus is definitely a big problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But Run Amok is lethal. So we're good. Alright. I really did not think we were going to win that game. Opponent had a very, very good start. I like their deck a lot. Very well built, well played by them. Extinguish the Light, lots of good card draw, great removal, Extinguish the Light, Rona's Vortex, Eviscerate and stuff, but once we stabilized there, we stabilized hard. Luckily for us, while we didn't have the early pressure to be on the aggro that game, our opponent didn't have the early pressure either, really, so we did get to wait a very long time to get to a position where we could start stabilizing, so it's kind of... We had a slow enough start that we had the time for our a little more medium deck to find a way to stabilize against this, so that was a sweet game to start it off. Again, huge props to my opponent. It's a really nice deck, very well played, but we did get there in the end. Helm of the Host is just too big of a bomb for us if we manage to get it on the board and get it going. So we are going to be 1-0 heading into Game 2. Here we are in Game 2 with no red source, but still a potential keep. Maybe I'm supposed to mulligan here, but we know that we have a turn 3 Skyrider we can play. We have a Reproach if they're aggressive, and we have Juggernaut on 5, even if I don't hit any mountains ever. I'm going to keep this. The Bloodstone Goblin's the weakest card in the hand, so if we can't cast that, it's not that big of a deal. We don't get to curve out. The hand is significantly better if I hit a mountain turn 1 or turn 2, but I am on the draw. And again, it's not the end of the world if I don't, because we just don't get to play the weakest card in the hand. The opponent is on green-white. They reveal a Danitha Capuchin off of their Adventurous Impulse. They even have Elsewhere Flask, a very good mana-fixing card. Draw a card when they play it, and they can sack it to make all of their lands whatever basic type they need. I'm going to go Bloodstone Goblin here. And this is a game we probably have to just slam Skyrider down immediately rather than trying to get the kicker off of it later. But we'll see. Probably want to Gideon's Reproach the Danitha. So let's get in combat here. No blocks, so we can't Reproach Danitha yet. Both of these cards are instant speed, so I can choose what I'm doing next turn. We might actually be able to Skyrider on 6. I have 5 mana in the hand already, so if I hit one more land by turn 6, we'll have the mana for Skyrider. And I already want to Reproach Danitha anyway, and if I Reproach Danitha this turn, then my curve goes Reproach Warbrute Juggernaut. Like, Skyrider doesn't even fit into that curve anyway, so I think I am going to do that. Reproach Danitha. We have the 2-2 to block the 3-2. Actually have a 3-4 to block a 3-2 at that matter. Alright, so I think I do attack here because they have to have another spell for the Automaton to get in next turn. They have to have a combat trick or a removal spell, or they can't get through a 4 toughness blocker. We did hit the land for the Skyrider, so we know we can do that turn 6. So if the automaton is still around, if either of us attacks with 2 creatures, I can blow it up. And they are going to fire NATO Warbrute, so automaton will probably still be around turn 6. Their opponent is green, red, white, by the way. They did play a mountain here for the automaton. Didn't mention that yet. So here's Juggernaut. The downside of Juggernaut usually being the forced attacks, putting me into positions where I have to attack my 5-3 into their 3-2 and trade down. Actually not much of a downside when we've got a Cleaving Skyrider in hand, though. Unless they have a combat trick. Oh, no. Audacity. We are definitely hoping for no combat trick here, but let's see. Attack both, and before they can declare blocks, 2 damage to automaton. If they have a combat trick, they get to save automaton, but it would have to be like a first strike and +1 toughness trick to save it and also survive trying to trade into Juggernaut. Alright, they can't save it. Skyrider doing some good work for us. They do get to draw a card off Audacity. That's what makes Audacity really good. It gets around that huge risk that auras have that I was talking about with Frenzied Rage, where I just lose 2 cards to my opponent's 1 removal spell. Audacity gets around that risk, so I think Audacity is actually pretty sweet. Because it's like, well, if your opponent removal spells your Audacity creature, you just draw a card. You still have the risk of, if they respond to you trying to cast Audacity by killing the creature, then technically Audacity never hit the battlefield, so you don't draw a card, so you can still get got by instant speed removal, but not a ton of removal. We have lethal if they don't have a trick here. So we'll see what happens. We'll go for it. That is a trick, but it doesn't let them block 2 creatures, so it's not going to be enough. We are dealing 9 damage. And that's going to be game 2 in the bag. 2-0 heading into game 3. Here we are, game 3. Opponent is on the play, 3rd time in a row. Won't get to be on the play in our aggro deck, but that's okay, because this hand does curve out relatively well. 2 mana 3/1, 3 mana 3/2 haste, start beating down. Forge Chanter is kind of annoying. I want to just play my own Forge Chanter, because I don't really want to trade my Rock Hunter into it, especially because if they ever have an instant, they can ruin that combat by making this a 2/4 with prowess and just kill the Rock Hunter without even losing the Forge Chanter. So I'm actually just going to play Forge Chanter, because it's highly unlikely Rock Hunter is going to be attacking or blocking while that's around. But Forge Chanter, they'll have to cast 2 spells to prowess through it. And they are going to Lightning Strike, so they spend a removal spell on it. Fair enough. Nice to get that out of the way here. Play the mana so I could Citizen's Arrest, but we do not have a lot of removal in our deck, so we're definitely not spending it on the 1/3 prowess. Get our attack in with the Blitz Automaton. Now a Thraxidemon from our opponent. That could draw removal. A bunch of 2/2s from them. If I can get my Monstrosity down, and they don't have any attacks. Yeah, I need to hold on to Citizen's Arrest because we're low on removal. And all I need to do to cast Monstrosity next turn is make sure I have at least 1 creature still on the board. And then with Thraxidemon Vivisector, I don't think they're going to spend a removal spell on Rock Hunter or Automaton. So I think I can trade off with one of these and still cast Monstrosity next turn. It's going to be really bad, though, if I trade off with one and they choose to kill the other with a removal spell. I'm going to go for it here. Try to get rid of the Thraxidemon. They're red-black. I don't expect a ton of flyers, so I don't think Reach is that valuable. The 1 extra toughness, probably a little better because it makes it so they can't attack with the Forge Chanter unless they have a way to prowess. So the lack of an attack with Forge Chanter there was a good sign that we're not going to get combat tricked, at the very least. Alright, so here's our monstrosity, and now, unless they have removal for monstrosity, they don't really have attacks. Self-Assembler, that is a very, very good card. A 5-mana 4/4 that draws a card when it hits the board. Going to draw another 5-mana 4/4, this one with a very good activated ability. So we found our Citizen's Arrest target. We're going to have to get rid of the 4/4 that can buff itself, because that's the only creature that's big enough to get through our monstrosity. Play this Goblin, play this Cavalier, and our game plan here is to keep chipping away with the Cavalier because they have nothing to block flyers, and hold down the fort with our 5/5. Gideon's Reproach is a great draw here. This way, if they draw into some kind of combat trick to try to beat our monstrosity, we can respond by killing whatever they try to use the combat trick on. If they draw removal for monstrosity, they're going to be, oh my god. I was going to say, if they draw removal for monstrosity, they're going to be in the lead here, but also if they play an 8/8. Ward 4. I can afford to Reproach it if I spend 6 mana, so I can block with monstrosity, spend 6 as well. I can also just attack with monstrosity and run amok, but that's a 1-for-1 trade there. Or it's a 2-for-1 trade, sorry. I lose my monstrosity and my run amok. They just lose the cave. That's so bad. Oh, we win now. That thing's got vigilance. I don't know if we do win now. I think we have to just 2-for-1 ourselves into that and cross our fingers. Vigilance, I don't even get to crack back into them if I just let it through. Hitting them for 2 damage a turn. I can run amok as well. They're not on a 6-turn clock, they're on a 5-turn clock because of run amok, if I use that for extra damage. It's better to try to kill the Cave Guard now, because we know they won't have tricks. Oh, maybe I just get to kill the rest of their board instead. That seems reasonable. Cave Guard kills me in like 2 attacks, but if I kill the rest of their board, I could try to go wide around it and find a kill that way. Okay, well, never mind on that. We're killing Cave Guard. If they slap a Cave Guard onto this, we're just gonna kill the Cave Guard itself. And I get to hold up Gideon's Reproach to kill the Self-Assembler. Right. Opponent gets to draw first here, but with Reproach, currently I'm in the lead. But they scry to the top, so it's a good card. It probably puts them in the lead. Yeah, Reproach Assembler, and then we're just winning the race on board. And that's why we went for Run Amok instead of Reproach. Ooh, put me to 10 and put a 7/6 on board? Well, never mind. It's another pretty balmy creature. Definitely puts them in the lead. I wish I had a kicker effect to buff this goblin here. That would be super sweet. Well, we've got to draw super well here. I think I have to trade in the Vivisector and shoot the Assembler down. Can't afford to just take all this damage to try to double up, like blocking with a 2/2 and shooting the Torgar with Reproach. There's just too much damage now that I'm down to 10 from the Enter the Battlefield effect. If I take 4, go to 6, and then attack back at them, they block this and that. No, they block everything anyway. Not going to trade with Rager because they can unearth it and attack me with it again. And Automaton can block and kill Dwarven Forge Chanter, so... Yep, trade with the Bloodstone Goblin. Well, I did say I had to draw super well, didn't I? And so we shall. Opponent has scryed 2 cards away, so they could also draw super well, but if they don't... they're dead in 2 attacks. 8 life here. If they kill Tyrant, chump there, take 3. I think I shoot face. I have lethal on board, even if I don't shoot their face, but my options of what to kill aren't very good for me. Because I can kill the Rager and then they could just unearth it anyway, or I can kill the Forge Chanter and take 2 damage. It's also not good. Just makes it easier for them to find lethal. Oh, join forces might save one of these from a combat trick if that's their plan. Or a removal spell like Disfigure that's like -X, but looks like they didn't hit whatever they needed, and really lucky top deck in the end to get back into the game. But I'll take it. I think overall that was a pretty fair game. We got 1 Tyrant of Kur Ridges, which is a super absurd Mega Bomb, but we did have to fight through a Torgar and a Suchi, so we had to fight through a couple big cards that, if you glue them together, kind of count as like one good Tyrant of Kur Ridges style card. 3-0 heading into Game 4. Alright, here we are on the play for Game 4. Probably have to mulligan here. How many planes are in the deck again? 8 planes in an Evolving Wilds. We've got 9 white sources. We're on the play, so we're not even on to draw this time. I know I turned to Rock Hunter, but... Mission is a really good late game card that I can wait on. I don't need the white source till turn 3. We're going greedy again. The hand is pretty exceptional if we ever hit a white source, so... Ooh. If our opponent doesn't have like a Disfigure in hand, this could be that hypothetical game I was talking about of turn 2 Rock Hunter, turn 3 Frenzied Rage. Well, I don't think I want to just immediately go for that. Yeah, they have something at instant speed. Resolute Reinforcements. That would have absolutely destroyed my soul. And it still does. That's super awkward. That's literally the perfect card there. Because if I don't Frenzied Rage, they kill it with a single 1/1. And if I do Frenzied Rage, they just double block and kill it. Either way, I'm getting 2 for 1. We did get the planes here, which is beautiful. Something in the sky, or just start slamming in on the ground? Let's start slamming in on the ground. Show me what you've got. You got another reinforcements here? Oh my god, they do. Oh, it's Reproach. Alright, that's fair enough. Get the Reproach out of the way on the ground troops, so that can't be used on my Cavalier. Cavalier plus Rage is pretty scary. Having a flying creature with Menace? Ooh, speaking of things that are pretty scary. Ariel is nuts. If Ariel ever gets into combat, we'll Reproach Ariel. But they're gonna get at least 1 night out of Ariel here. Because she's vigilant. I actually think I need to attack with Dwarven Forge Chanter, weirdly enough. The reason is that if I don't attack with Forge Chanter, they could be scared of a combat trick on blocks. And then they might not attack with Ariel. And if they never attack with Ariel, then I'm in a really bad position. If they just sit there using her ability. So I need them to attack with her to get Reproach going. Might be being a little greedy with Missionary, but I am holding it here. They play around the Reproach that only exists in one of the 3 sets in the sealed. Unfortunate. We probably just lose then. Although I've said that earlier today. If I get 2 for 1, I get 2 for 1 tier. Frenzied Rage isn't really doing anything in my hand anyway. Probably should have just done that last turn. Makes it way less suspicious, the mana that I'm holding up. Yeah, maybe if I did that last turn, we might have been able to get an Ariel attack. But yeah, just passing with 4 mana untapped in a red-white deck is wildly suspicious. Destroy a tapped creature. Rude. It's gonna be a pretty basic game here. They played a bomb and I can't kill it, so we are dead. Not too much to say from this point on. Game number 5, let's go. Here we are in game 5 with a mono white hand. However, everything in the hand is castable, so we'll roll with it. And I guess the Juggernaut isn't, but see here. Probably gonna cut this Frenzied Rage. This card has been horrible every game so far. Uh-oh. Kept the mono white hand. We have drawn 2 red cards in a row. Definitely not an ideal start. Danitha Capuchin, annoyingly good against low toughness creatures, which is what I've got here. The first strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink is huge. They get to chip away for damage no matter what, because I don't have viable blocks, and then I don't even get to counterattack because of the Vigilance. The first strike just making it impossible to get through. And that might just seal the deal here. I think that's our 3rd Danitha we've ran up against today. She is a phenomenal card. Even send her into the sky with their aeronaut's wings here. Kelton Strike Team's a real nice synergy with the Griffin Protector. Get extra damage in here. We're a ton of mana away from kicking the Skyrider. Quite tempted to triple block Danitha. I lose my 3-1 and 2-1, but then she's gone, period. My only other block here is to just kill a 1-1. I keep more creatures. Trade off into their 3-1. Yeah, and then Griffin Protector can't attack in unless they play more creatures in the future. All I need to block Danitha is any land here, and then I have either of these creatures being big enough to block Danitha. Rather play Onulet, though, because it doesn't force me to attack here. We're going to pass the turn. Alright, we have flying blocks for whatever they put the wings onto. We have flying blocks for the Protector. And we have the Onulet to block the Danitha, so we have blockers for everything, so they need some more plays in their hand to keep the pressure on. Started the game off pretty pessimistic because last game went pretty horrifically for us, but getting out of the cloud of pessimism now. We drew incredibly well last turn to not only hit a land, but hit a mountain specifically here. So now we actually have options in the future. They can't find a decent card to put pressure. Well, I should not open my mouth. That is a very good card at putting pressure on here. Make sure Danitha can keep chipping in and gets rid of my best card and exiles it specifically so that I don't get any unearthed value. And they sure are going to throw some wings on Danitha here. I'll snap trade 3/1s. Oh wow, I was going to say I'll snap trade a 2/2 flyer for their 2/3 flyer. They decided against that one. Warbrute's solid, but not going to be big enough in the sky. Do I have to use Frenzied Rage just to get one more toughness on my flyers so that a double block kills Danitha, so I 3-throw myself to kill her? This is why I thought it might have been decent to try to just 2-throw myself to kill Danitha earlier, because now I'm in a position where I genuinely have to consider 3-for-1ing myself. I guess it's not a 3-for-1, right? They can only kill... They just first strike away the Skyrider, and then they... Well, they first strike away one of the two, and the other one survives. It's still a 2-for-1. I feel like that's just the play here, because literally everything else in my hand is a creature on the ground, which only matters for blocking a 1/1 soldier. Alright, I need them to not have removal, and then I need to double block Danitha here. They kill my Mesa Cavalier and I keep a 2/2 behind is why I chose to put the Rage on Cavalier instead of Skyrider. If I put it on Skyrider and double block, they kill the Skyrider and I leave a 2/1 flyer behind, so this way I get to leave a flyer behind that's big enough to kill their soldiers without dying. And either one I put the Frenzied Rage on, pretty much any removal spell is gonna kill. Yeah. If I put it on Skyrider, they would just kill Skyrider with the Fight with Fire instead, and I'd have no action here regardless. So I think that was the correct line there, but not a great outcome. That'd be a Fight with Fire was going to be a horrific outcome for us regardless of what we did. Oh, this is really not working out here. Take 4 damage if I trade with the soldier. I don't have a flyer anymore, but it's not like my flyer can actually block well unless I draw into something, but I kind of have to draw into something. Tyrant could be good in the future. By playing Warbrood, I forced them to send Danitha into the sky, and then now I have to chump block. I don't think Tyrant is enough, even if I draw a Mountain next turn, because I'm going to be at like 1 life after this attack. And I'm going to have almost no creature. Oh my, that is so much removal. It's a beautiful sealed pool from our opponent. Prayer Binding, Static Net, Fight with Fire. A ton of good aggressive red-white cards. Their deck is just our deck, except much better commons and uncommons. Unfortunate stuff. I guess I don't scoop yet. We've got 1 more turn. I want to scoop them up. If they have literally nothing in hand and we hit Mountain, then we can stabilize. That is not Mountain, so we're dead. Alright. 3 and 2, heading into game 6. Another very, very nice deck from our opponent. Good stuff. This is a really risky keep. We need another white source for a rest. We only have 1 card that's castable with the current lands we have, and then we have a 4 mana, a 5 mana, and another pretty much 5 mana play. There's just too much high mana stuff to keep this, I think. Well, this is arguably even worse, because I need to hit 2 red sources specifically for Tyrant. Can't exactly mulligan down to 5. The mulligan was well, definitely correct, but this hand is just worse. Just got a poor draw here. I don't think I can mold a 5 and expect to win. I guess it's moderately more likely than winning with this hand, because I can get rid of cavalry here, and then I just need... I'd have to draw like perfectly to win this game. I need to play Sleeper on 2, Sentry on 4, Juggernaut 5, Tyrant on 6. I guess these are both soldiers, so I could get rid of Juggernaut, but... I literally need to hit a land drop every single draw step. Alright, we'll keep this one. This is actually... Ooh, not Helm. I think this is actually the best hand that we've drawn so far. It's just Mountain, Plains, 2 2-drops, and a Helm. Just kind of sad, but we'll roll with it. We've got a chance. Pretty slim. Mulligan to 5, and we're on the draw. But it's a chance. We're definitely going to play it out here. There's all the 4 mana that we need to cast the Helm of the Host. Just need 1 more land to equip it to something. Chromatic Lantern from our opponent. Perfect mana fixing. Makes all of their lands tap for 1 mana of any color. So they can do whatever they want mana-wise, which is very, very nice for them. Skittering Surveyor, wow, they've got an excellent mana base for some 5-color shenanigans. Skittering Surveyor is a phenomenal card from Dominaria. Probably the #1 best common to open in your sealed pool, because it fits into every single deck you play. A 1/2 that grabs any basic land you need, puts it into your hand, then shuffles, and it's frequently a 2-for-1 because it can trade off into 1 toughness creatures, or hold back Sapperling tokens and stuff like that. I'm going to have to join forces here if they block. Which could have been a decent reason to just send in Cavalier. That way I just drop Helm of the Host and just fingers crossed draw land the next turn. But I'm pretty cool with the join forces here and try to keep the pressure on their life total, put them down to 13. I feel like in a deck that has access to all 5 colors of mana, they get to play pretty much every single removal spell in their entire sealed pool, so they probably have something that can just kill our Helm of the Host anyway. And I didn't hit the land this turn, so it actually works out really well for me, because if I played Helm last turn, I wouldn't be able to equip it now anyway. Alright, fine trade. I'm not going to reproach, I'd rather Helm. That is not a fine trade. Now I might reproach, because I can reproach and play Goblin at the same time. Sorry, Helm of the Host. Things keep happening. They've got 4 cards in their hand, and they can cast pretty much anything. Thopter Mechanic, really nice here. It's big enough to trade off into any of our creatures, and when it dies, they get a 1/1 flyer. And Blackblade Reforged is a tremendously powerful card as well. For 7 mana, they can equip it to any creature they control, give it +1/+1 for each land they control. I feel like I attack with everybody, play Helm, and hope to hit a land. But also attack with everybody in the play Sentry. Their plan here is probably to trade off with one of our creatures and then just slam the Blackblade onto their Thopter to have like an 8/8 flyer or something. But if they attack us with it, we can outrace them. We just can't really get through it. And I think we attack with everybody here. We're going to have to trade into the Thopter Mechanic with something at some point anyway. Let's get as much damage as we can in. Oh, then just more tricks. Ooh. Kinda gross. Because they didn't kill any of our flyers, because they couldn't there, but because Thopter Mechanic didn't die, so they don't have a flyer out, I'm actually going to play Aven Sentry, because we killed them in 2 attacks. if they don't interact with our flyers. Just attack for 5 and then attack for 2 in the sky. We're golden. Dang. If they didn't have Urgoros here, it would have been super beneficial that they actually didn't trade with the mechanic. There's the 5th mana we need for Helm. I think I attack with Aven Sentry here, because this is the only time that I can actually just trade into the Urgoros. In the future, they can slam Blackblade onto the Urgoros. But here I get to hit them down to 4 life, or trade into the Urgoros and then they don't have a flyer again. It's the only opportunity to kill it. And I don't attack with both, because then they're just going to take 3 and kill Cavalier. Attack with just 1 here. Alright, they're going to take it. They need this Urgoros. Play our Helm and see if they have a way to interact with it. Because we've got the 5th mana now. If they don't have a way to interact with it, that should close out the game for us. They do have a subjugation for our Aven Sentry, but we can still put a Helm on it, even if it's tapped forever. It is the higher power creature, so it's probably what we're going to put the Helm onto. I don't think our life total is extremely relevant here when our opponent is at 4. They can't really afford to hit us at all, even if it is a hit for like 1,000,000 damage. If they attack here, they're dead. Alright, they're dead on board. Let's go. Let's go. If they block Aven Sentry, take 4. They did not attack there. They could have blocked Goblin. So I would not have a crackback. But we were probably getting there either way. Helm of the Host when your opponent's at 4 life is like exceptional. Alright, and there is the concession. We are now 4-2, heading into game number 7. Alright, here we are, game 7 on the play. I can immediately grab my Swamp for Missionary later. Although I'm probably just going to play this turn too, so I'm actually probably supposed to just grab a Plains for a rest. But yeah, I mean, the mana's good. We only have 1 creature, but we've got that Helm late game. Let's do this thing. I think I am grabbing a Plains here. There's not a ton I could draw that would make me not want to play Missionary turn 2. There's like 4 cards maximum, and those are my other 4 2-mana creatures. And then I would probably just play Missionary turn 3 anyway. Or actually, I'd probably just go Missionary 2 and then the other 2-mana creature on turn 3. Alright, we've drawn the second mountain, which is good if we hit our Tyrant. And we're going to get things rolling, stealing some life from our opponent, going up to 22 here. Looks like they're on the same colors, but with a better mana base. They got Sunlit Marsh and Sacred Peaks, and here's a Banalish Sleeper. That's going to go ahead and trade into the Phyrexian Missionary with its kicker effect. It's just going to force the trade. Alright, if I draw any creature here, got some nasty stuff going on with Helm. There's the creature. Play the Helm first, play the creature first. If I play the Helm first, the next turn I play the creature, and then the turn after that I equip Helm. It's going to take forever to put the Helm on either way, so I think I just play the creature first, so at least I can get some damage in before I'm girdling around with all my extra mana. Astor, Bearer of Blades, lets them look for equipment and vehicles out of the top 7, and it's a 4/4. 4/4 dies to Gideon's Reproach, so I don't feel the need to Citizen's Arrest that. I guess it outraces us a little bit. But I think I would rather try to approach it and hold Arrest behind for something else. If I had 6 mana here, this would be beautiful, because then I could Reproach this turn and still play the Helm. But still fine. If they have instant speed removal, that's going to destroy my soul when I tap out to equip Sentry and then nothing happens this turn. I think I'm actually on Skyrider Reproach, because they probably have something. I already want to Reproach Astor either way. And this way, we might even get them to like tap out for sorcery speed removal to kill Aven Sentry and then flash in a creature to put Helm on anyway. Again, literally any creature I have with a Helm on it is going to win us the game. Regardless of size. Alright, maybe they just didn't actually have the instant speed interaction. They're just really digging here. This is a pretty solid, safe line that we took. Here's Skyrider. They 100% have the instant speed removal. I changed my mind. If they're playing a desk and just passing with 4 mana up, there's absolutely no reason to do that. Unless you're just trying to blow up whatever I put the Helm on. So I'll put the Helm on the smaller creature, let them blow it up and hit them for 3. Alright, played correctly. Let's hit for 3. Pass the turn. Digging for some stuff with the research desk now. What'd they get here? Deathbloom Salad. Or Plains if they need lands. Alright, I guess they didn't have a land in hand. We'll play the land for turn off of the research desk. Skittering Surveyor coming down. It's a sweet card. If I don't win the first Mixer Sealed event, I really want to open up some Skittering Surveyors. Kind of sad I didn't today. I wasn't sad until I noticed that that card exists. Until I remembered that that card exists because it got played against me. I miss Skittering Surveyor. If 2 mana instant speed removal, that seems good. Everyone has so much better removal than us. I feel like most of the decks we've played against, like every removal spell they've played has been better than our best removal spell. I guess Citizen's Arrest is kind of on par with Lightning Strike. Definitely not Battle Hymn, though. We're just playing against like Prayer of Bindings and the Exile a creature and gain life and put a Power Stone onto the board. I forget what that one's called. Played against a ton of great removal. And the best removal spell in our whole sealed pool is Citizen's Arrest, which is fine. Sorcery Speed and double white. Got Extinguish the Light as well. Luckily, that's just exiled forever. I mean, they can play it till the end of their next turn, so now if I top deck a creature, I can't play it because they're just going to extinguish it. Oh my god, they have the Golden Argosy to go with their incredible value creatures of Phyrexian Rager and Skittering Surveyor. So they get to crew the Argosy with those and then flicker them so they come back on the board and they draw 2 more cards. A land and a card off the top. Alright. It's probably game for us. It's going to take a little longer to die, but they're going to Value Town. They're going to be far ahead in card advantage, have plenty of backup removal, likely in hand. Unfortunately, just outclassed by some better sealed pools today. 4-3, I think, is a pretty nice record for this deck. I think pretty much every loss we had was against sealed pools that are just, again, just outclassing us, just some better decks. I don't think there was a deck in our sealed pool that was as good as the decks we're losing to here, unfortunately. We did what we could. Got a decent ways in, but not gonna get there in the end today. Alright. 4-3 it is. Again, I try not to scoop, so we'll play it out, but I think we have one more turn. Since I do get to at least exile that giant flyer. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I somehow survive, and have 11 mana on board, if I hit my Tyrant, I can win. Because then I could afford to play the Tyrant and put the Helm on it. But I don't think I'm going to survive to a point where I have 11 mana and a Tyrant in hand. Well, they're not really playing more threats, so if it's just top deck land, top deck Tyrant, then there you go. That being said, they probably have more removal. They've played 3 removal spells so far. I mean, my deck only has 2, but I assume theirs has like 10 at this rate, at the rate that they drew them early game, unless they all clumped up on the top. Another skitter, Jesus. That is a really good deck. On our Argosy town here. They're gonna lightning strike me in the face. They opened 2 lightning strikes and 2 skittering surveyors. No, I'm just getting extra damage in here. Alright, looks like not dead. But just another land for us, and now we are 100% dead. 4 and 3. It's gonna be for the first Dominaria Mixer Sealed Arena Decathlon event. Again, I think that's a pretty solid, pretty reasonable record for our sealed pool. Not a lot of good stuff going on in here. I think we found the best lane to be in. Most of our colors were quite lackluster, like our blue and our green especially. Black was pretty average. We again only had 1 removal spell in black, and it's not that great. It's pretty efficient at getting small things, kind of like a lightning strike, but pretty bad at killing big stuff. I played a riposte, but again, it's pretty inflexible. Yeah, I mean, looking at the sealed pool here, I don't really have many regrets about the deck building here. Certainly had a few misplays in those games, but the games were generally won and lost based on our deck quality, and I think we built about as good of a deck as we could have with our sealed pool, so can't be too unhappy with that. We did what we could, got a 4-3 run out of it, which is respectable for this sealed pool and for this deck, but not quite going to get us that Decathlon token off of the first try, which means we are going to be doing an additional try of this on the YouTube. So tomorrow will be my first run of the Arena Decathlon standard gift bag event, which is a standard event where you get an emblem that gives you 1 of each token type during your first 3 turns, and then that's it. You just get a food, a treasure, and a clue throughout the game, which was interesting. So we'll be trying that out, because we are going to be doing every Arena Decathlon event. But then the day after tomorrow will be another run at the Arena Decathlon Dominaria Mixer Sealed event, and hopefully we get a bit of a sweeter sealed pool, and maybe get our 7-win run there. But again, 4 and 3, nice record, slightly above average. I'll take it, especially with that sealed pool. We had the 1 great bomb, not too much else going for us, so that's that. So that is going to end today's video. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to hang out in real time, check out the Twitch channel. I am going to be live with some more Arena Decathlon attempts in these next coming days. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, check out the Patreon link in the description below. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.